Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
It's Halloween week, boys and girls, and if you can hear the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. My name is Dave Voigt. I am the editor and publisher over at intheseats.ca, and I am also your host for this podcast where we talk to a wide variety of industry professionals, not just about current projects, but about the business as a whole and how they got in and, well, anything else that might come up. Like I said, it is Halloween week. And you know what? It makes sense that we're going on a bit of a theme because for today's episode, we talk to Kelly Michael Stewart, the director of the Blood in the Snow Festival, which is kicking off this week on the Super Channel. Because as all festivals are these days, they need to pivot and they need to find something else to get running. And it's... In case you don't know, Blood in the Snow is a Canadian genre film festival that really primarily focuses on really Canadian talent, and they're heading into year 9 now, and they've got another fantastic lineup ready to go. And we talked to Kelly not just about the lineup, not just about the importance of supporting Canadian cinema, especially these times, but also just about the need to sort of diversify and sort of be ahead of the curve, especially considering what's going on in the business right now, and just sort of attempt to be as forward-thinking as humanly possible. And I definitely think Kelly and his entire team at BITS are heading in the right direction on that front. And on that note, that's enough of me blathering. Let's hear me blathering again, but also more importantly with Kelly.
Now, okay, I guess my first question is because... I mean, like you say, it's been a hell of a year. Mm-hmm. And when everything started to shut down and everything was happening, I don't think anyone would have given you any grief if you had said, you know what, we're taking a year off, let's re-examine, we'll start planning for 2021. What was the impetus for you to go, you know what, fuck it, we're going ahead?
Well, I have to give credit to the head of A71, now Vortex Media, Justin Ravello. He contacted me and he asked. He made a suggestion. He was friends with Super Channel, the head of Super Channel, and he asked if we'd be interested in partnering with them to do it on the channel. So it really came from him setting up that meeting with me. I was prepared to cancel this year. I wasn't really interested in doing like a virtual version, like where you're just like online thing, like the way, I don't know, Fantasia or like that done, or so many other festivals have done. And it's great for them. I just really didn't have the resources or anything. I wasn't really too interested in that kind of system. And so I went from March to I think this went till about May or June. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it was kind of like in limbo. I was going to either push forward with I didn't know how things were going to be in November. I was either going to do still do like a more limited screening in November,
right? Or
we were going to cancel altogether. I definitely wasn't interested in a virtual. But when I met with Super Channel, what they proposed and everything, and they were so flexible and so like whatever we wanted to do, they were like game for us to do it. And that's what shocked me. It was like, I figured, dealing with a kind of a corporate broadcaster, I figured there'd be a lot of restrictions and we can't do this, we can't do that. And then other than not showing 18A films before 9 p.m., they were fine with that. That was pretty much the only stipulation. So they've been so great to work with. It really made it quite frankly easy to do. It was kind of an easy move. And we weren't the first festival to do this. Canadian Film Fest did it. I watched those screenings, and even when I watched it at the time, I wasn't planning on doing it. I didn't have a contact with Super Channel, but I liked what they did with that. And then I think the Edmonton International Film Festival just wrapped up theirs as well on Super Channel. So we're the third festival to do that. But I liked the freedom that we could have to still do everything that we normally do on the channel. And so, so what we've done is did everything that we can do. We looked at everything we could do in person, see what can we do online, a virtual version of that. Right. So we recorded introductions, and it's a really kind of cool haunted house set. You might have saw a couple of the pictures we posted on social media for that. But this is really cool haunted house, 2 different big sets that we did for that. And we spent a whole day shooting that. And we also had Robert Bellamy, who does our Bits Radio. He's recorded some video Q&As that'll be at the end of every screening. So it'll be right on Super Channel, all the Q&As that way.
That's
and
awesome.
They'll have been pre-recorded. So we've been doing a lot of things like that. And we're still going to have our award show. That's actually what the main thing I'm working on right now is our award show on closing night. So they'll make a 20 to 30 minute program after the last feature, just like we would in the theater. So and they were, Super Channel was great. They were like, they didn't even give us a limit on how many films to play. We were playing short films in prime time. We wanted to do the award show. We wanted to do this. They were just excited to have us. They were so easy to work with.
Now, what year is this for Bits? 7, 8, I want to say?
9.
9. It's number 9. And I mean,
yeah.
History, Bits has always kind of felt like the little festival that could, but now it's really evolved into its own brand. Can you walk me back to sort of the origin story of Blood in the Snow? Because I've always been kind of curious to hear that. Why a Canadian genre film festival specifically?
Yeah. No, it's actually a very interesting story. In fact, I just had a memory of on this day of us announcing it, and that was in October. So, and our first festival was just like we usually have it at the end of November. And back in 2011, 2012, there was this theater in the East End called the Projection Booth. And I used to host these horror movie nights there. And I did that for about a year. And that came about because I was writing for Fangoria at the time. And it just sort of became like my Fright Nights, Fangoria night kind of thing. But I kind of played a bit of everything. I played Canadian titles, but I also played retro titles. And the Canadian titles were always well attended and did very well. And that was kind of fun, actually. I kind of enjoyed doing the indie screenings the best, actually, which was never the intention. But I just kind of fell into that and really kind of liked that whole scene, actually. And then what happened was a bunch of filmmakers contacted me in the summer of 2012 and said, well, can my film didn't get into Fright or into Fantasia or Toronto After Dark, which were really the only other 2 options. And they do play Canadian content, but they don't, it's an international, they're both international programming. So they would maybe play at the time, at the time Toronto After Dark would maybe play 2 or 3 titles. We play a lot more now. And then Fantasia would play about 5. And so they can't fit all the stuff in. And so then they didn't really have a Toronto premiere. So I had ones that were like world premieres that year. And they were like, well, why, can we play it during your Fright Nights? And this happened for, I think, 3 movies. And I'm like, and then I knew a couple other ones I wanted to play as well. I'm like, well, if I do this, it's going to take 6 months to roll this out. Why don't I just do it over the weekend? And originally it was going to be Fright Nights, Blood in the Snow weekend, which was like an all-Canadian weekend.
Right. And
I mentioned it to one of the filmmakers, and he said, well, that sounds like a film festival. And I kind of went, okay, sure. I mean, that's how like nonchalant the whole thing went. Oh, okay, sure. Well, yeah, we'll call it a film festival. That sounds better. Okay, sure, why not? And we announced it, in about mid-October, and had nothing. Like we had no team. We had there was no programmers. I just picked a bunch of films, and in fact, it was 2 days, and then I had a couple more films given to me after we announced it, and then we made it 3 days. So it was done very haphazard. And it just kind of came together really, really fast. And then, 2 of the screenings were like almost sold out. We had good turnouts for almost every screening. It was really well attended. We had MTV Canada come out when they were still around, and they did some interviews and stuff. And it was like really, you could tell there was something happening. You could tell there was a vibe to it. And I'm like, wow, we actually have a real festival. So the funniest thing is that, this whole thing came together in about 6 to 8 weeks. And then when it was over, the people that kind of volunteered at the last minute, we all had a meeting at a pub after in like January of 2013 and went, okay, so how do we run a film festival? But we'd already done year 1 and it had been successful. So we already had that kind of beta year. So it was kind of like, so even though that was the first year, it wasn't really till year 2 that a lot of the things that you associate with Blood in the Snow really started. We didn't start the awards until the second year. I think we announced them on Facebook, like just a list of names.
Right.
For like, we did that. They weren't even called the Bloodies then. We didn't start the filmmaker buttons, which is what we give every filmmaker gets a special red and black skull button. We started that in year 2. We brought on programmers in second year for that. That's when Kirk and Jason joined. So yeah, it was just kind of like, and then we moved it to the projection booth was kind of going down the tubes at that point, and we wanted to move something a bit more central anyway. So we moved that to the Carlton, and then we did that for 3 years. And so that's where it kind of like, but we, even in year 2, we had no budget. Like, it was just really kind of like, we didn't really have any sponsors. Certainly didn't have any funding. And we did that for 3 years. And then the big turning point was in 2015. We knew we were outgrowing the Carlton. We were doing, you'll probably remember, we were doing repeat screenings and barely fitting people in with a shoehorn. The Carlton has a big lobby, but the largest theater was 120 seats, and so it was filling up very, very fast. So we had to make a move to a bigger theater. So that meant we really had to look at expanding. That's when we started. We registered as a nonprofit. We started a board of directors. We started applying for funding and different things and going after sponsorship more. And that's really kind of like from about 2016 on. That's when things really started to snowball a lot bigger.
Well, and I mean, and it kind of leads into my next question, because there's always seemingly been an evolution when it comes to Blood in the Snow and just trying to add different things and trying to diversify. And I'm kind of curious, from a filmmaker standpoint, was there any kind of pushback? Because, I mean, as great as it is to get the audience on Super Channel, to get these films played, to get them out to a much wider audience, at the same time, it's still not in a theater, which I can imagine there may have been a little bit of initial resistance to.
No, there actually wasn't titles because of it. And we knew this would happen. There was a few titles that already had pre-existing broadcast deals,
right? That
with Crave and CBC, and even a couple of shorts we lost because they had a pre-existing deal with CBC. And it's kind of funny. It's like, okay, like with film festivals, you've got everything's about premiere status. So it's either you want a world or Canadian or a local premiere, right? And generally when we play stuff, we have to have at least a Toronto premiere. If you're a really big festival like TIFF, then they want world premieres and North American premieres and stuff. So it's kind of a different. With broadcast, it's kind of like that, but in a whole different way. Whereas there's a thing called first window.
Right.
So they kind of if they have a broadcast deal with another place to have first window, then that would limit it. But frankly, that was only about 2 or 3 titles. That was not. It wasn't really a huge part. I think we're all in the same. That's the thing about this whole COVID thing. We're all in the same boat. If we tried this in a normal year, I think that there would have been a lot of pushback. Like, why are you doing that? Why aren't you in the theater? What's this all about? But I think because of the circumstances, everyone was like, wow, at least you're doing something. You're able to do something. And so I know we didn't. I don't think we got. I can't think of any scenario where there was push. I can only think of one short where he didn't understand what it was, and he said, "No, I'd just rather put it on YouTube." So that's like, okay, 300 people on YouTube or 300,000 on Super Channel. That's up to you, but whatever. To each their own, I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't matter how good you can offer something. Sometimes people just have their own ideas and their own direction. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, the thing I look at it is that, look, we're here to provide a service to help filmmakers, and that's part of our mandate. That's part of our agenda is to help filmmakers, and we want to help the filmmakers that want to be. We want to help the filmmakers that want to be helped, right?
For sure.
So, yeah. So I mean, but that's 99. But 99% of them are like totally excited. Most filmmakers, whether it's this year or a normal year, they're always emailing us, going, "Hey, what can I do? What other events do you have going on? Can I, is there any industry things I can go to? Can I do this? Can I do that?" And there is a lot of excitement and stuff for it. And I should mention too is like what makes it extra good for the filmmakers is that I can't get into the details of it, of course, but and I don't even get involved with it at all. But all the feature films were offered a broadcast deal, so you don't have to have a broadcast deal to play Blood in the Snow on Super Channel. But they were at least there was at least a negotiation for that. So way it works is that we'll be playing the films once, whether it's the shorts or the features, and then the ones who have broadcast deals, they can go off and do theatrical or play other festivals or anything. It has no effect on their broadcast deal. And then it can come back like 6 months or a year later and then play it properly. So it's on there. So the way it's going to work is that people watching Blood in the Snow, they're going to only see that version of it just that one time, that one night. There'll be one repeat that night. But other than that, that'll be the one time. And then it'll be for those ones that go with a broadcast deal with Super Channel, you'll see them pop up on there, 6 to 12 or even 18 months down the road.
Well, that's amazing because, I mean, like you said, Blood in the Snow has always had a mandate to help Canadian filmmakers and help Canadian film to find an audience. And I mean, I love the fact that it's specifically for genre, obviously, because as much as rich as the genre community is, as you and I both well know, on the grander stage, it always feels like it never gets the respect it deserves either.
Yeah. No, and I think this is what's neat is that it is quite a, it's such a unique opportunity to and this is why we wanted to go all out for when we were recording these intros. Like we really wanted to turn it into like, as you know, I produced a movie called Late Night Double Feature, and I wanted, I'm a big fan of like late night horror shows. So I'm like, wow, this is our chance for 11 nights in a row to have our own horror night and kind of thing like that. And I kind of wanted, and so kind of like, I don't know about respectability, but certainly, certainly we really brought it into the mainstream. I mean, certainly kind of like having, I think like they have over 400,000 subscribers and all across Canada. And yeah, most people can only, you're only showing it to a couple hundred people in a theater in Toronto. And it's only the people that can get to Toronto that can watch this. And this is like a once in a lifetime where we can do this like all across Canada. And I think it's going to really kind of blow away people. And also, yeah, I think their perception of what genre stuff can do and what it can say artistically as well too. I think the storytelling is in Canada, I think is a lot more mature than other parts of the world. Like I think there's less emphasis with someone walking around with a chainsaw or a hockey mask in our movies. We're all, I always say we're all children of David Cronenberg.
Yeah.
So there's always that kind of there's a lot of the films that we're playing is very like psychologically driven. It's kind of like, but that's the way it's been going for quite a while now.
You must have been a kid in a candy store shooting some of these intros because, I mean, there's a real old school vibe to that sort of classic midnight, TV horror marathon. I'm sure you were having a blast doing it.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it's a bit nerve wracking because I've hosted stuff on camera before, but I hadn't done it in about 3 years. So I've been cooped up at home all this time. So I was like trying to get a little bit in shape before. It didn't go so well, but did a little bit of that and just try like halfway presentable. But yeah, I mean, I had such an amazing cinematographer and production designer. Like it just was, we were just in there. And we're like, this is amazing. Like we felt like we're at home. I didn't want to leave the set once I left it. And but it was also funny because it was a really weird deja vu because a few of the people that worked on that shoot also did work on Late Night Double Feature, which to tell your listeners, like that movie is about the behind the scenes of a late night horror show, and like we're in the room and we're like, this is getting so meta right now. Like it was so weird. I'm just like, wow. I'm like, I mean, none of the debauchery or the death that, happened in our set, obviously, but just the fact that we were doing this and doing, introducing these movies and stuff, it was a bit surreal. And I'm like, wow, careful what you wish for. I mean, it was really art imitating life or life imitating art, I should say. Yeah, I guess it was that way. Like it's really kind of this weird circular circular kind of thing to it. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun to do.
That's hilarious. And I mean, because there's something else about Blood in the Snow I've always appreciated, and especially when it comes down to short filmmakers, because you and I both know, and when you attend festivals, if you don't know out there tends to just be the short program, or short program 1, short program 2. They may have themes and whatnot, but your short programs seem to go an extra step and have sort of clearly defined sort of alleyways in terms of making it very specific and just trying to sort of highlight the subgenres inside the genre of horror.
Yeah, because what happened was until I guess 2 years ago, we were just doing it was just like a very generic bit short film showcase kind of thing, and then it became bit showcase 1 and showcase 2, which was getting really boring. And I just thought, I always like to being a genre festival, you like to put a little bit of pizzazz to it. And I'm like, well, what if and then it got that 2 years ago, we were getting so many good shorts, we had to expand it yet again. I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to do 3 or 4 things and just call it 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's just so boring. I mean, kind of that seemed like, well, why don't we look at what the programming is, and maybe we have some silos that we can put these in. And so this is where we broke it into 4 categories. And so we have emerging screams, which is our first time in student filmmakers. But I always put a little asterisk, don't be fooled by that, because like the filmmakers, it's still really strong. Like it's not like high school. Well, some of them are from high school, but you wouldn't know it to see it. But I also wanted to have that because that was a really important category, because I didn't want, if they were just not quite as polished as the other shorts, I didn't want all of the first time filmmakers being disappointed and getting turned down. So I wanted it like a home for them. No matter what, it would, at the very least, there'd be a 90-minute block for that. And then I always find comedy and horror go very well together. So that's when then we had the Funny Frights program. And then we also have had a web series program for 3 years now, called the Series of Web Bites. And that's kind of actually evolved from web series. This year, it's a mix of music videos, web series, and even a digital TV series that's actually on Amazon Prime, Age of the Living Dead. And so it's kind of like, anything that's kind of digital programming that's not available on traditional mediums and stuff. And then the 4th category is called Dark Visions, which is basically that's all the rest of all the crazy really dark horror stuff that we play at the festival. And then on top of it, we still play shorts in front of each feature as well.
And it is such a diverse lineup. And I mean, especially I know this is a stigma, but I mean, with audiences, hear the word Canadian film, there tends to be a bit of an eye roll or a sigh. But then if you look at something like what's opening the festival, I'm stumbling on the name.
Anything for Jackson?
Anything for Jackson, exactly. It's such a well-executed, messed up story that it's not trying to be Canadian. It's just trying to be this little encapsulated sort of messed up universe. Same with something like For the Sake of Vicious, where it's just this 80-minute construct of brutality that people get sort of lost in. And I mean, is there anything like when you're programming and when you're looking for stuff, like, is it the stuff that stands out, that is maybe a little different from the rest, that's sort of exceptionally well executed, is the stuff that you try to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always looking for something that has that is either has something to say, or is at least trying to say something, or maybe doing it just a little bit different. Maybe has a little bit of a different take on one of the typical tropes. It's kind of like that too. Like Parallel Minds. I mean, that film is done by anyone else would be just standard, kind of more of your standard sci-fi fare, but it's actually a Métis filmmaker from Alberta that made that film, and he's infused those elements into the film as well. That is part of organically part of the story, and so that kind of gives it like a different take on it, and kind of and Another example is a film Hall that's one of my favorites playing this year. Is that it's very topical of this virus infecting these people that are staying at a hotel and going through the whole hotel. But what gives it a different take on it is that the two female protagonists in it are both escaping domestic violence. So one is in an abusive relationship, like literally there with her husband trying to escape it, and another one is a pregnant woman that had just fled that, and their stories kind of intersect through this virus. And I think that aspect of it, that domestic abuse aspect of it, makes the film so much more interesting than if it was simply it was just simply about a virus. I think just a virus film would be kind of dull.
Yeah.
And then anything for Jackson is kind of the same as the thing too. It's like what I like about it. They use basically Satanism to try and bring back their grandson. But what's really interesting is about the main characters, played by Julian Richlings and Sheila McCarthy. They're very empathetic. They're not like these evil people. They just want to get their grandson back. They just they're doing bad things to do it, but they're not trying to be bad people. They're kind of like, well, no, we just want to get our family back and like that. And they're going about it obviously horribly wrong, but they're not, like, you can tell they're not inherently bad people per se. And that kind of, like, I think that brings a whole different take to it.
No, and you're absolutely right, because I mean, and especially in the horror genre or even sci-fi or other things, historically, it's always been these kind of genre films that have, at least, like you say, attempted to bring up either genuine representation across cultures or even genuine representation of social issues that are out there. And that tends to get forgotten quite a bit.
Yeah. Exactly. But I think also too is like the way things are changing with Me Too and more emphasis on having BIPOC filmmakers in front and behind the camera be there more too. I think there's definitely, it's still a long way to go, but I think there's an emphasis to try and diversify the kinds of stories that are getting put out there. I'm definitely seeing some changes in that realm. We still have a long way to go though, but you can tell the earth is changing a little bit on that.
Does that cause difficulties for you in a programming standpoint in terms of, I mean, I don't want to say quota or trying to get quotas, because obviously as an artist and as an artistic endeavor as a film festival, you want the best films to come out of it. But how do you sort of maintain that balance of trying to sort of give everyone a voice while still maintaining the highest quality of films that you put on?
Well, you have to do it in multi. It's a very good question, because that's something we've actually spent a lot of time in the past year working on. We're just in the process of expanding our programming team. And just to make it a bit more diverse, we're adding 2 new programmers this year. I think Norma Glashan is one, and then Jerry Thrasher, Inuit filmmaker from up from the Northwest Territories. She's joined the team as well. That'll be for next year. And I think, and we're also bringing more people that are going to be on the board, and different people in different positions of power, because I think just by bringing people up from a top level down is going to naturally bring more diversity and bring up these issues more and flag things that frankly, as a white male, I might not get on my radar.
Exactly.
Like that too. So I think that's one way we're doing it. The other thing that we're just in the process of announcing and working on is I'm working with our programmer Carolyn Morissette, she's also on our board, but she's also become our development director. And that role, what that is that we're actually going to start a mentorship program next year that are going to help. So it's going to help BIPOC and underrepresented filmmakers, LGBTQ, female identified, to get their projects financed and and get them there, because the problem is yeah, you can only program what comes in. If it's like if the films aren't being made and they're not being submitted, then but that's also one of the mandates I've given Kirk to. He looks after a lot of our acquisitions, and I told him to look out for those qualities as well too. It's like we're like that too. We try and approach different, we have different filmmakers that we're always looking out for. So you can't just wait for the films to come to you. So that's really kind of like, so it's a multi-tiered approach. There's not one solution to it, but the one thing you can't do is just sit on your hands and kind of go, well, this is what was submitted to us, so oh well, that's all there is. And I think that's what's going on a little bit in Hollywood. I think that's what's going on with some of the really big festivals that aren't. I think TIFF's done a decent job of it, but like I think Venice and stuff like that have gotten criticized for they've kind of just shrugged their shoulders and went, well, this is what we got, and kind of thing like that. And then whereas we're trying to be a bit more proactive about be part of that change. And I think also too, we have to change the narrative of this assumption that if someone's underrepresented, then suddenly their project is like less value because it's because there's a quota or something. I kind of look at it as more as value added. I think by having that diversity in the projects, make the films that get submitted to us that much more interesting. So
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things, because for you as a brand, being proactive, it sustains you down the road for what you're trying to build and do with Blood in the Snow, which is a smart thing. You're not thinking about, this year's crop of films or next year's crop of films. You're thinking about 5 years down the line crop of films, which God willing, these programs can help with.
No, 100%, Dave. That's exactly the plan, is that these things aren't going to get changed overnight, but you can't so that's why we need to kind of start just do what we can to change the narrative. And also a lot of it too is just simply reaching out to filmmakers and telling them that your projects are welcome here. We want to see your projects. We want you to submit like that too. We want to know that there's a home for you, kind of like that. It's kind of like you just have to be inclusive. You have to make it feel like people will be welcome and be included, right? And this is also why one of the other things I do is, and this is the advantage, because I have a bit of an advantage because we're not, we're Canadian genre festival, so we're not getting the thousands of submissions that other festivals are. So they don't have this luxury as we do. But I spend about 3 days of the year, and I mean 3 full days, where I will send personal emails to not just the ones that got in, but the ones who didn't get in. And sometimes it'll be just the 2-line, sorry, we couldn't fit it in, but keep me updated. But sometimes we'll actually give like real feedback if it's warranted. Yeah. Going, look, we really like your short film, but it really was 5 minutes too long, that kind of thing like that. Or you really need to work on your sound design next time and things like that. And I've gotten a very, very positive response from that. And it's really I plan on doing that as long as I possibly can, because what it is that, there is just a small group of like maybe a few hundred filmmakers in Canada that do this. And I don't want them to be discouraged and then we never hear from them again. Because there's a lot of times, and this is really true, that there's a lot of times we'll turn down a filmmaker's film like 2 or 3 times, like different, and they'll finally get to like the third one and we'll play it and it'll do great and stuff like that. But sometimes it's the time, sometimes they're like just on the bubble, like they just don't, they're really close. So I want them to not be discouraged. And I've gotten some really positive emails back from people appreciating the personal touch by reaching out, and it has encouraged them to keep submitting. So I really, it's a big part of what we do is really building those relationships.
Yeah.
So that they kind of go, or I'll even say like, okay, you didn't make it, but when we had things in person, sometimes I'll comp them a ticket or encourage them to do one of our industry panels or something like that, like just to kind of keep them. Because sometimes, a lot of times too, filmmakers don't really have a context of like what else is being made. Yeah. So they also honestly need like a reality check of like how competitive it is. Yeah. And they and so sometimes they need to come out and I'll go, look, you need to watch the shorts, come and watch the Dark Vision shorts program. This is your competition. Watch this, and if you decide if you can what you have to do to get to this level, and like that too, because you pretty much have to get. We have like a whole score system where we get our film submitted, and you pretty much have to get into the shorts, any of the shorts programs really. You pretty much have to get 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 with all the programmers. And when I say 4 out of 5, I mean the fifth one was like a maybe, a strong maybe. Like, you know what I mean? Like it has to be. But if you get like 2 no, if you get like a couple of no's, you're not, or it's 4 maybes. 4 maybes ends up adding up to a no. You know, it's not too often that's going to get in. So it's very, very good. So when you have to score 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 to get in, it's really competitive, you know.
For sure.
More so than even features. Features, like, it's still hard to get in for features, but shorts are without a doubt, the hardest category.
Well, and I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it really is important to stay engaged with the content out there on every level. And I mean, I guess just to put a bow on this, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Mm-hmm. Given what is going on in the world, and none of us, like, we think like there will be theatrical at some point. What it's going to look like, none of us really know. I guess my question for you is 2-part. Do you think Bits would ever go back to the theatrical experience, or even sort of develop some sort of hybrid between, you know, broadcast and theatrical? And also, how important do you think sort of the art of curation is going to be going forward? Because especially given the glut of content that's out there, it's kind of hard to sort of sift through the noise, even for people like us who are kind of doing this on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first part is, I mean, is what there's a difference between what we want to happen and then what our options are.
Right.
For my feeling is that I have a hard time picturing. I mean, never say never. I mean, I know. I don't know. I would never say never, because I said 6 months ago, I said a hard no, that we weren't. It was either. I did say to the team, well, it's either theatrical or bust. Like, we're not either. You know. So I ate my words very quickly on that.
9 years ago, you'd be at this stage.
No. Well, yeah, I didn't. In fact, actually, I had a friend tell me. She asked me, and tell me how things can change. I had a friend ask me in the summer of 2012, and we started Bits in November of 2012. In the summer, apparently, she asked me, because I was doing these movie nights. She said, "Kelly, do you ever want to run a film festival?" And apparently, my answer was hell no. And this was like July. This is July, and then by November, I had it like I'm forever for the end of to end of time festival director thing now, and just sort of like, and that within 4 months, this is like. So apparently I said that. I don't remember saying it, but it sounds like something I would have said. And the same thing happened earlier this year. I was like, well, I'm we're a theatrical festival. I have no interest in doing this online. But then the Super Channel thing came up, and so yeah, I don't know if I want to go on record and say which way. What I think would be fun and I think would be fun would be a hybrid. I think it would be like where we did a few days on Super Channel and we did a few days in person. I think that would be a really good approach. We'll have to, and again, we'll see what Super Channel wants to do. I mean, we'll see when this is all done, if they want to keep doing this stuff, or and we'll have to see what the state of the world is going to be. I mean, kind of thing like that. I mean, a lot of it, I mean, I think we're going to be one of the more lucky ones. Frankly, I think other festivals are going to have to make that decision before we will. Yeah. Because the Royal Cinema, as far as I know, they're a little bit more, they're not as dependent on screenings the way other theaters are, because they actually are a post-production house during the day.
Yeah. So
they can at least pay some bills like that. I'm sure they're still struggling, but I think they have a better chance of surviving this than, frankly, Imagine Cinemas or Cineplex do, So I think festivals that were at those two theater chains are maybe not right away, but who knows? I mean, I think there might be more upheaval there. I think some of the independents that have a community behind them and stuff like that. Like I don't see theaters like the Review and the Fox closing down, because they're going to have a whole community rise up, and I've already seen it happen where people have been buying seats at the Fox, like putting plates on, like paying a couple $100 to have their name put on the back of the seat and stuff like that, and they raised like $30,000 in a week. So there's things that they've been able to do to kind of keep things going. They can't do that forever, but it's more of a case of like what's going to happen to the big chains. And the other issue is what's going to happen to all the satellite places that we do stuff with. I don't know what's going to happen to the bars that we did our after parties at, all those kinds of things. I'm probably more concerned about that going forward, of like what we're going to, like, we'll find a new place if we have to. But if this keeps going on for another year, I don't know how many of those are going to be able to weather this, right? So it's really kind of like, it's a big unknown. I guess it comes down to the long answer here. I think I've learned from this is just to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
And we just have, and my focus is just getting through this year, and we'll just kind of see what the state of the world is in January. And then we'll have to see, but also be flexible about what we're going to do. We'll have to see how things are in June and kind of thing like that. There's just so much that's happening that we can't even change. I mean, this is there is no precedent of it. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of festivals and events that had their last year. The ones that, a lot of them that got canceled this year. I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from this or not. I think the rental rates are going to go skyrocketing. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, I think we're going to be one of the lucky ones, because the irony was that our funding and sponsorship all went up this year, because I've never sold out of our program booklet, and we're only printing a handful. Most of it's digital, but there's a lot of things like I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe how well. But I think what happened was that all the people that had sponsorship that they wanted to do for other festivals weren't there.
Yeah.
And so they were like, and so we were kind of like not the only gig in town, but we're kind of like it definitely made the playing field too crowded. I mean, I will say this, one thing I think was getting a bit out of hand, and I'm not going to point the fingers at any particular festival, but I think when we started in 12, it was really just us and After Dark for genre ones, but there was a lot of genre festivals that popped up since then.
Yeah.
And then there's been a lot of, and there's just been, and I think just in general, I think in a way there was too many festivals in the city.
Yeah.
Too many film. Too much. There might have been just a little too much of a good thing, just because it's just like you can only have. I mean, I think at one point there was 3 different genre festivals in November alone.
Yeah.
November, not even October. November. I mean, I just think it's a little too much. I mean, and maybe that's just me being selfish, because we want to obviously be a dominant player, but it was just sort of like it was just getting a little bit of a noise. So I think when you have these hard times, it's kind of like, I think a lot of other festivals are going to have to take a look in the mirror and go, how bad do you really want this? How much are you willing to struggle over the next 5 years to stay afloat and weather this storm and or if you even have the capabilities of doing that?
Well, and I mean, it really does speak to just sort of the mindset as well, because, and this isn't just like, this happened a little bit with festivals, to your point, but just even the general theatrical release concept was just going blah, content. And that's not going to be the thing anymore. Little theaters will survive based on curation. Festivals will survive based on curation. And I think it'll come down to bigger theaters as well, having to get more aggressive and more, at least out of the box when it comes to curation on what screens remain, so they can get people to attend.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been saying for years too that because what's happened with everything going to these digital platforms, it's just all that's happened with this year is just sped up what was already happening. I mean, everything that we've been going through. To like Disney Plus's plan, their 5-year plan ended up being a 5-month plan by the way things have sped up and so forth. And I think it's just sped up what was already happening. So it was something that I was cognitive of already. And one thing I've said for years is that the key to our success and key to any festival or any kind of theatrical experience is you have to create an experience that can't be replicated at home. If like as much as we're trying to do that on Super Channel, for the long game, if we're going to get back into theaters, we have to do things that we have to keep doing more and more things to make it so that they're having a user experience that involves that them watching it on the couch isn't going to get by going in person. And I think that's what's going to have to happen for any kind of theatrical or any kind of festival. You have to do just think, what can we do to make it special? This is why we do things like people can hang with the filmmakers and having little cocktail events and parties. And it's not just because we want to have a party. It's like, if you're going to go, if you know you can go to a screening and then go have a beer with the filmmakers and meet the actor or whatever that played in it after and have a drink with them at the bar after, it makes it much more enticing to get off your couch on a cold night to come out, right?
For sure.
So,
you know what? I think that's a good note to end on, because we tend to sort of forget the importance of the value added, which a film festival like BITS really does try to focus on. I just want to say thanks again for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Really enjoyed it.